1,000 years, a millennium swallowed by shadow, no wars of consequence, no inventions that truly advanced humanity, no records that genuinely illuminate the lives of millions, just silence, a vast echoing void. They call it the Dark Ages, a convenient label, isn't it? As if the entire continent of Europe simply forgot how to think, forgot how to build, forgot how to record its own existence. But what if that darkness wasn't the absence of light? What if it was a curtain deliberately drawn, a meticulously crafted illusion designed to obscure a truth too profound, too dangerous to ever be revealed? The Dark Ages deception. From the supposed fall of Rome in 476 AD to the dawn of the Renaissance, nearly a millennium of history stands cloaked in an impenetrable fog, a period so barren, so devoid of verifiable progress, it defies all logical patterns of human civilization. No eyewitness accounts that truly resonate, no innovations that genuinely propelled society forward, just a quiet, relentless erasure, a systematic obliteration of memory. But who orchestrated this grand deception? Who possessed the motive, the means, and the power to rewrite the very fabric of time? And why? What unspeakable truth was so vital to conceal that an entire epoch had to be sacrificed? Prepare to question everything you thought you knew. Marble statues toppled, not by barbarians, but by an unseen force. Empty, eerily silent streets in Rome. An ancient scroll burning, not from accidental fire, but from a deliberate, controlled flame. The Western Roman Empire, the colossal edifice of antiquity, supposedly collapsed with barely a whimper. A child emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was overthrown. No grand armies marched, no triumphant horns blew, no chroniclers, it seems, bothered to capture the moment for posterity. An empire that had defined the known world for centuries simply vanished, and the world, we are told, simply turned the page. But here's the chilling anomaly. No one living at the time, no contemporary historian or chronicler, ever referred to it as the end. The term collapse came later, much later, long after the silence had already settled in. This wasn't a sudden cataclysm. It was a gradual, insidious fading, as if the very memory of a vibrant civilization was being systematically dimmed. What kind of collapse leaves no echo, no lament, no detailed record of its demise? It suggests not an ending, but a deliberate cessation of narrative. This wasn't merely a decline. It was a historical vacuum, a black hole in the timeline. Where are the detailed accounts of the migrations, the economic shifts, the cultural transformations that must have occurred? We are left with fragments, often contradictory, often written centuries after the fact. It's as if the lights went out, and when they flickered back on, centuries had passed, and the world was fundamentally, inexplicably different. This isn't history, it's a convenient blank slate. Vaulted monasteries, vast and imposing, flickering candlelight casting long dancing shadows. Monks hunched over parchment, their faces obscured, their movements precise and deliberate. As the secular world supposedly crumbled into dust and disarray, one institution remained not merely untouched, but inexplicably, terrifyingly ascendant: the Church. While cities decayed, while knowledge supposedly evaporated, the Vatican rose, not with swords, but with scripture, not with armies, but with dogma. They didn't need to rewrite the past in its entirety. They only needed to choose which pieces survived, which narratives were amplified, and which were condemned to oblivion. Entire libraries, repositories of millennia of human thought, burned, not always in grand public pyres, but often quietly, systematically, within the very walls meant to preserve them. Greek manuscripts, detailing advanced mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy, vanished from circulation. Ancient maps, revealing a world far more interconnected than we are led to believe, disappeared. Treatises on engineering, medicine, and secular history, all quietly buried beneath layers of theological Latin, copied only by monks trained to obey, not to question. Their pens became instruments of censorship, their scriptoria, the silent factories of a new controlled reality. This wasn't an accident of history. It was a deliberate, strategic consolidation of power. By controlling the narrative of the past, they controlled the present and dictated the future. They became the sole arbiters of truth, the gatekeepers of knowledge, and the only voice allowed to speak of what had been and what was to come. What secrets did those lost texts hold that were so threatening to this burgeoning power structure? What alternative histories? What suppressed sciences? What inconvenient truths were deemed too dangerous to exist? An ancient astronomical clock, its gears grinding, ticking backward, then suddenly lurching forward, skipping centuries, papal scrolls being sealed with heavy wax, the seals bearing symbols of imperial and ecclesiastical authority. There's a theory, whispered in the shadowed corners of academia, that most mainstream historians refuse to even acknowledge, let alone touch. It's called the phantom time hypothesis. A radical, yet disturbingly compelling proposition that nearly 300 years of European history, specifically the period between 614 AD and 911 AD, never actually happened. It was, the theory claims, inserted into the timeline. A grand chronological fabrication orchestrated by a trio of immensely powerful men. Otto III, the Holy Roman Emperor, Pope Sylvester II, a man of formidable intellect and ambition, and their imperial court. Why commit such an audacious act of historical fraud? The motive, if true, is chillingly pragmatic. To legitimize Otto's claim as a divinely appointed ruler, a successor to the Roman emperors at the dawn of a new millennium. By shifting the calendar, they could align his reign with the year 1000 AD, imbuing it with messianic significance, a fresh start under a new, divinely sanctioned order. It was a power play of cosmic proportions, a manipulation of time itself to solidify earthly dominion. But here's what truly chills the bone, what lends this audacious theory a terrifying plausibility. When astronomers retroactively track celestial events, eclipses, planetary alignments, cometary appearances recorded in medieval texts, the stars simply don't match the story. The astronomical data, the immutable clockwork of the cosmos, refuses to align with the official timeline. It's as if the universe itself is calling out the deception, a silent witness to a crime against chronology. The very fabric of time, it seems, was stretched and distorted to fit a political agenda. The sky cannot be forged. The celestial dance, the predictable rhythm of the cosmos, is beyond human manipulation. And yet, between 614 and 911 AD, the very heart of the alleged phantom time, there is almost nothing. No reliable maps that show consistent geographical features. No consistent dates that can be cross-referenced with external, non-European sources. No monumental architecture that truly stands as a testament to a thriving, evolving civilization. Just popes whose existence is difficult to verify outside Vatican archives. Saints canonized without verifiable bodies or historical context. Battles referenced in later chronicles, but never fought, never leaving archaeological traces, never impacting the broader geopolitical landscape in a way that makes sense. Europe, once a vibrant cradle of civilization, a nexus of trade and innovation, was frozen in time, a historical diorama devoid of life. It's a period of inexplicable stagnation, a historical flatline. And all the while, the East, the Islamic Golden Age, the flourishing empires of Asia, soared. While Europe supposedly languished in intellectual darkness, Baghdad was a beacon of learning, Cordoba a center of scientific inquiry, and Chinese dynasties were inventing gunpowder, printing, and advanced navigation. The contrast is stark, almost too perfect. Was Europe truly so uniquely inept? Or was its history deliberately suppressed, its progress deliberately obscured? To serve a narrative of divine intervention and singular religious authority? The silence of these centuries is not merely an absence, it is a deafening roar of unanswered questions. Shadowy labyrinthine corridors of the Vatican Secret Archive, a massive, ornate, locked iron gate, its intricate patterns hinting at ancient secrets, faint echoing footsteps, as if someone is perpetually searching or guarding. Beneath the marble heart of Vatican City, nestled deep within its impenetrable foundations, lies the Archivum Secretum, the largest, most restricted, and arguably most powerful collection of human memory ever amassed. Over 50 miles of shelving, stretching into an abyss of forgotten knowledge. Over 1,000 years of silence, guarded by an institution that claims divine authority. Scholars, historians, and truth seekers have begged for access, for a glimpse into its forbidden depths. Very few have ever been granted entry, and of those privileged few, none, absolutely none, have ever seen it all. The vast majority of its contents remain locked away, shielded from public scrutiny, from academic inquiry, from the light of critical examination. What secrets could be so volatile, so destabilizing, that they must be kept from humanity for centuries? And what little has emerged, what tantalizing fragments have been selectively released, hints at an even greater, more terrifying truth. Knowledge wasn't lost in some accidental historical amnesia. It was sealed. It was deliberately sequestered, categorized, and hidden away, to be revealed only when it served the agenda of its custodians. Imagine the scientific breakthroughs, the philosophical insights, the alternative histories, the very understanding of our place in the cosmos that lie entombed within those walls. The Vatican isn't just a repository of faith. It is perhaps the ultimate vault of suppressed human potential. Giordano Bruno, a visionary philosopher, dared to see stars the Church refused to name. He spoke of infinite worlds, of a universe teeming with life, of a cosmos far grander and more mysterious than the narrow confines of geocentric dogma. For that audacious vision, for daring to think beyond the prescribed boundaries, they burned him alive, not for heresy against God, but for heresy against their control. His execution was a brutal public warning. Question the narrative, and you will be extinguished. Galileo Galilei, a brilliant astronomer, saw the Earth move. He observed the phases of Venus, the moons of Jupiter, irrefutable evidence that the heavens did not revolve around a static Earth. For that undeniable truth, for daring to present empirical evidence that contradicted their established cosmology, they locked him away, not because he was wrong, but because he was right too soon. His discoveries threatened the very foundation of their authority, which rested on an unchallenged, divinely ordained worldview. The sin, in their eyes, was not ignorance. The sin was not error. The sin was curiosity. The sin was independent thought. The sin was the pursuit of knowledge that lay outside their sanctioned texts. They didn't fear false ideas. They feared true ideas that they could not control. They feared the awakening of the human mind, the very spark of inquiry that could unravel their carefully constructed reality. These were not isolated incidents. They were calculated acts of intellectual suppression, designed to maintain a monopoly on truth. When you control the calendar, you control the story. You dictate the rhythm of life, the very framework of existence. The Church, in its relentless pursuit of absolute authority, didn't just influence time, it dictated it. It reformed calendars, not once, but multiple times, ostensibly for astronomical accuracy, but perhaps for far more insidious reasons. It rewrote ages, shifted epochs, and subtly, yet profoundly, altered our perception of history. Even now, we confidently declare it is 2025. But if nearly 300 years were indeed added, if centuries were fabricated to serve a political and religious agenda, are we truly where we think we are? What if this isn't the future we believe ourselves to be living in? What if we're still catching up to a past we never truly lived? A past that was deliberately obscured, a past that holds the key to understanding our present predicament. A very concept of linear time, of a progressive march through history, is a construct. And if that construct was manipulated at its very foundation, then our entire understanding of human development, of cause and effect, of progress and decline, is fundamentally flawed. The Church didn't just control the spiritual realm, it sought to control the very dimension of time, to become the ultimate chronometer of human existence. This isn't just about dates, it's about the very narrative of human civilization. In 1513, a Turkish admiral named Piri Reis compiled a map of the world, a cartographic marvel centuries ahead of its time. It depicted coastlines with astonishing accuracy, including the Americas long before European explorers supposedly charted them. But here's the truly inexplicable detail. It showed Antarctica without ice. Its landmass, its mountain ranges, its rivers, all clearly visible, as if surveyed from the air, or from a time when the continent was not entombed in miles of frozen water.
Piri Reis himself claimed his map was not original.
He stated it was compiled from older source maps, ancient charts, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Maps we've never seen. Maps that defy our understanding of ancient navigational capabilities. Where are these impossible source maps now? How could ancient civilizations possess such advanced geographical knowledge?
Many suspect only one place, the Vatican Secret Archive,
the very vault we discussed earlier. It is the logical repository for knowledge deemed too dangerous, too contradictory to the established narrative of human history. What if these maps are not anomalies, but fragments of a lost global civilization? A testament to a level of ancient knowledge that was deliberately suppressed. What if the ice-free Antarctica points to a cataclysmic event, or a far more ancient human presence that the official timeline cannot accommodate? The Piri Reis map is not just a curiosity, it is a direct challenge to our accepted history. Cathedrals rising, impossibly grand as if by magic. Stained glass windows depicting divine intervention. Lightning striking a stone, revealing an intricate, hidden mechanism.
We are taught the Dark Ages were a time of miracles,
a period when divine intervention was commonplace, when saints performed impossible feats, when faith alone moved mountains. But what if miracle was just a word used when knowledge had been deliberately taken away? What if it was a convenient explanation for phenomena that were, in fact, the result of forgotten technologies, suppressed sciences, or advanced understanding that had been systematically erased?
When complex machines, like intricate clocks or sophisticated hydraulic systems,
reappeared centuries later, they were not called inventions. They were called divine gifts, or the work of inspired genius, rather than the rediscovery of lost knowledge. The very concept of human ingenuity was replaced by a reliance on supernatural intervention. This wasn't just about belief, it was about control. By attributing all progress to divine will, the Church cemented its role as the sole intermediary between humanity and the sacred, thus solidifying its power. And slowly, the memory of human potential, of our innate capacity for innovation and discovery, was replaced by a blind faith in magic, in the inexplicable. The Dark Ages weren't dark because humanity was incapable. They were dark because the light of knowledge was deliberately extinguished and its embers carefully guarded, only to be selectively rekindled when it served the agenda of those in power. The miracles were not divine. They were the echoes of a forgotten past, reinterpreted for a new, controlled reality. Children in medieval-style classrooms, their faces blank, their eyes downcast. Teachers, stern and unyielding, holding crosses. Slates with only biblical text. No mathematics, no science, no critical thought.
1,000 years of silence.
Not because minds failed. Not because humanity suddenly lost its capacity for reason or innovation, but because minds were trained not to awaken. Education became obedience. Curiosity became sin. The pursuit of independent thought was deemed a dangerous heresy. The light of inquiry was not extinguished entirely. It was stored, carefully guarded, until the right hand, the hand of authority, allowed it to shine again, and only in ways that served its purpose. The very curriculum, the very method of learning was designed to stifle critical thinking,
to discourage questioning, to instill unquestioning faith.
History was presented as a linear progression towards a divinely ordained future, with the Church as its central, indispensable guide. Any deviation, any alternative narrative was simply erased from the collective memory. This wasn't just about controlling information,
It was about controlling the very process of thought, shaping the minds of generations to accept a manufactured reality. The Dark Ages were not a period of intellectual stagnation. They were a period of intellectual suppression, a deliberate, systematic campaign to control the flow of knowledge, to dictate what could be known and what must remain hidden. And the legacy of this suppression, this intellectual conditioning, continues to shape our understanding of history, our institutions, and even our own capacity for independent thought to this very day. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, filled with intricate designs of flying machines, anatomical studies, and complex mechanisms. Da Vinci's flying machine, not as an invention, but as a rediscovery. The Renaissance, a glorious rebirth of genius, they say. A sudden explosion of art, science, and philosophy after a millennium of darkness. But rebirth requires a birth to begin with. What if Leonardo da Vinci didn't discover? What if he merely rediscovered? What if the Church, having consolidated its power, having established its narrative, simply opened a few shelves in its vast hidden archives and let the world believe it had finally awakened from a self-imposed slumber? Imagine the shock, the intellectual revolution, if the true extent of ancient knowledge had been revealed all at once. It would have shattered the Church's carefully constructed narrative of divine revelation and unique authority. Instead, knowledge was released in controlled bursts, attributed to individual genius, allowing the institution to maintain its position as the ultimate arbiter of truth, the benevolent dispenser of enlightenment. The Renaissance, then, was not a spontaneous awakening, but a carefully managed unveiling. A strategic release of suppressed information, presented as new discoveries, to maintain control over the pace of progress and the narrative of history. It was a brilliant act of historical stagecraft, allowing the Church to appear as the patron of enlightenment rather than its suppressor. The rebirth was merely the slow, deliberate reintroduction of what had been deliberately hidden. A massive, ancient door, slowly opening in shadow. A blinding shaft of light spills in, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. A single profound question, written on ancient parchment, slowly unfurls. We are told the past is truth. We are taught to accept the narratives presented to us, to trust the institutions that claim to preserve our history. But when the gatekeepers of memory are also its authors, when the custodians of knowledge are also its censors, what remains? What version of reality are we truly inhabiting? What if we're not standing on solid ground, but on a timeline stitched together, not by objective fact, but by the threads of power designed to serve a specific agenda? What if everything we know, every historical event, every scientific breakthrough, every cultural shift, is merely the version we were allowed to know? The carefully curated narrative designed to keep us from asking the truly uncomfortable questions. Because sometimes, the greatest darkness is not the absence of light. It is the light itself, so blindingly bright, so meticulously controlled, that it obscures the very shadows it casts. It is the truth hidden in plain sight, woven into the fabric of our accepted reality. The real Dark Ages may not be behind us, but all around us. A deception so vast, so profound, that it has shaped the very consciousness of humanity. If this story made you question the past, if it ignited a spark of doubt about the official narrative, then subscribe, because the truth doesn't need to be told, it needs to be found, and the journey begins with a single, courageous question.